And why not keep both the videos on one channel?
My rule of thumb is that you should try to keep things on one channel if possible. My channel's not going to last forever. I know my audience has like very specific expectations, and like I can't keep talking about that stuff for the rest of my life because.
Today we welcome Finn McKenty to the podcast.
Finn is the creative force behind the Punk Rock MBA YouTube channel with 560,000 subscribers that delves deep into music trends, and another YouTube channel with 150,000 subscribers.
Finn also hosts a very successful podcast, and his expertise has earned him recognition in prestigious outlets such as CNN, New York Times, Billboard, and No Jumper.
The time to think about going to another channel is you just have to understand that it's not going to last forever and have a plan for what you're going to do when that eventually runs its course.
With this success, Finn is now helping other creators grow on YouTube. What do you believe as good content for YouTube?
Well, I don't decide what good content is. It doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the audience thinks. The audience decides what good content is. I think YouTube is the best platform. The other problem is that short-form viewers don't really convert to long-form viewers.
You are listening to the Playstack podcast, where we talk about everything YouTube related.
Thanks, Finn, for joining us on the Playstack podcast. We're at episode 5, I believe. It's getting there. And so what I like to ask our guests first, and I mean, we're diving straight into it with you, but can you explain more about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, most people probably know me from YouTube. I have a couple channels with a total of about 700,000 subscribers. In addition to that, my career has been in product design and marketing for about 20 years now. Started out kind of in the agency world, did a lot of stuff with brands like Nike, Red Bull, ACG, a lot of Procter & Gamble stuff like Febreze and Swiffer. Also worked at a Silicon Valley startup called Creative Live that did online education for creative people. They got acquired by Fiverr recently. And then I started doing YouTube in 2017. I never had the intention of being a YouTuber. I just wanted to learn how YouTube works as a marketer because I realized how important the platform was, and it ended up getting a lot bigger than I expected it to be. And I thought, well, I guess I should probably keep going with this. And so here I am 7 years later.
Nice.
It's interesting because we're seeing a trend with pretty much all the guests that we've interviewed, including myself as well, where no one really decides to become a YouTuber. It just kind of happens by accident. Like for me, for example, I just started making videos. I never knew that my channel would blow up. I just wanted to kind of experiment. But I'm curious. So you've got 2 channels,
Yep.
One with 150,000, one with 560,000 subscribers. You started about 5 years ago.
7 years ago.
Music? Why did you move? 7 years
Yeah.
ago. So did you start off 7 years ago with a music YouTube channel? And why music?
Yeah, well, so the beginning of my main channel is called the Punk Rock MBA, which the original goal there was actually to talk about business sort of from the perspective of somebody with a non-traditional background like me. But turned out nobody wanted to hear me talk about business, and which in hindsight makes total sense because that's just not what people go to YouTube for. So I pivoted. I'd written a lot about music in the past, so I kind of knew what, knew what the audience wanted in terms of music. And so I pivoted to that, and that's when things sort of, blew up.
So how did you realize that YouTube is then such an important platform? What made you think that way?
Well, I didn't really pay much. I mean, I like everybody else, I saw YouTube when it came out in 2005 or whatever it was. But, back then it was just cat videos and stuff like that. And then, a few years later, maybe by 2013, 14, 15, it had grown into something else. But at that time, to me, it felt like it was kind of for kids still for the most part. I don't like even remember. I guess PewDiePie was probably the biggest creator at that time. And nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't really interesting to me because, I was an adult. But then I started seeing the thing that really made me sort of change my perception of it is I went to Warped Tour 2015, I think. And they had, Warped Tour is like a traveling music festival for anyone who's not familiar with it. And they have tents where you could do meet and greets with all the bands. And that year they also had YouTubers on there. For example, Brian Stars was on there. A friend of mine named Johnny Gilbert, who was, sort of part of that too. And the lines for the YouTuber meet and greets were 5 times longer than any of the bands. And that's what made me realize wow, this is more than what I realized. And so then that was kind of I need to be thinking about this.
And so you have two channels. What made you create a second channel? And why not keep both the videos on one channel?
So my rule of thumb, and for anybody who doesn't know, I also do like YouTube consulting. So these are the kind of things that I help people with. Um, my rule of thumb is that if you're either, you should try to keep things on one channel if possible. The time to think about going to another channel is if it's a radically different audience or a radically different format. And in this case, it's the same audience, but a different format. So my second channel is all Twitch highlights. So it just felt like my main channel is like highly polished, like video essays. And to me, it felt like it would be weird to have Twitch highlights in there. Also, the main channel is a little bit different in tone. The main channel is like just the facts, like very sort of like I don't make jokes. I don't have any personality on there. And then on the second channel, that's more like silly and fun. So same audience, we're still talking about the same kind of music, but it's a different tone and a different format. And that felt like it was enough to me to justify a second channel, which I think was the right call to make.
Yeah,
That's very
and
interesting.
that makes sense. That makes sense because we also consult on YouTube, and I would give exactly the same advice. And interestingly, it's something like I'm very reluctant, as Milan knows. I'm very reluctant to start a second channel.
You really don't want
because it's like, okay, yeah, because you're splitting your resource, and we all have finite resources. You're splitting resources into 50% to one channel, 50% to the other. And so this is something that I've been trying to pivot my YouTube channel last year. So I started my YouTube channel. I was targeting students because at the time in 2016 I was a university student, and so of course you talk about what you know. And for me, it was like how to get better grades, that kind of thing. However, I didn't necessarily want to be talking about studying and talking about grades for the rest of my life. Like I want to kind of talk about some other stuff. And so last year I spent a lot of time trying to pivot. In November and December, I went hard into productivity AI videos. Those videos didn't really take off. And so now I've kind of been pushed, as the YouTube algorithm does, it kind of pushes you into a corner. And so now I kind of have to talk about personal development and studying, unless I want to start a new channel, which, as I said, I'm very, very reluctant. So you mentioned that you tried to pivot from you pivoted. So you was doing business, but then the channel wasn't really taking off. So then you kind of pivoted to music. What advice would you have for someone like me who is very reluctant / lazy, maybe, to start a second channel?
I don't think you're lazy. I think that no, you're not, because you know what it takes, right?
Yeah, it took me seven years to get where I am right now. And it's like, okay, if I start a second channel, how long is it going to take me? I'm going to be like in my 40s by the time I have 1 million subscribers with a second channel.
Yeah, that's not lazy. That's just that's a risk assessment decision of like, I know what this takes at this moment in time. Do I want to invest that much time and energy into this thing? And that's just sort of a decision on your part of whether it's worth it or not. So I don't think that's being, I know you're joking, but I think it's actually different and important to recognize that. So as far as pivoting goes, again, the pivoting when you have a mature channel versus when you have a channel that's in its infancy are two very different things, because in the beginning, your audience has no expectations of you because you don't really have an audience. If your videos are getting whatever, like hundreds or even, low thousands of views, I think you can do whatever you want because there are no expectations. But once you've been doing this for a few years and you have an audience of hundreds of thousands or millions of people that have expectations for you, you are kind of boxed in. There are people who have successfully pivoted their channels, but it's not very many. In fact, the far more common outcome of that is that they ruin their channel. We can all think of people like whatever had a huge channel, and then it's like, man, why did he pivot to doing such and such, and his views went down 90%? He just keeps doing this stuff that obviously nobody wants. Like, what is he doing? That's more likely. So how do you pivot? How do you pivot when you have like a mature channel? I don't think there's anybody that has like a really kind of proven playbook for that. And this is true for companies in general too. Like any company you think about, when they've tried to basically change who their customer is, it almost never works. There's examples of it, but far more often it ends up being basically, the death blow for the company. So I would for anybody, like, here's my thought on it, because like my channel's not going to last forever. I know my audience has like very specific expectations, and like I can't keep talking about that stuff for the rest of my life, because it's like, what more do I have to say about this? I think you just have to understand that it's not going to last forever, and have a plan for what you're going to do when that eventually runs its course. And it's the same as any other job. You're not going to stay. The days of people staying at one company 25 years are over, and it's the same thing with a YouTube channel. You shouldn't expect it to last forever.
That's great. I found you on LinkedIn, right? And I believe the way I found you on LinkedIn was because of your active interaction, or like you're very active. You're interacting with a lot of people. One of the like posts you made with the quote goes like, "Most company absolutely suck at YouTube because they refuse to make good content."
Yep.
Can you elaborate more on what you believe as good content for YouTube?
Well, I don't decide what good content is. The audience decides what good content is. And we can see by the view counts on almost every business YouTube channel is that their audience has decided this is not good content. It doesn't matter what I think, and it doesn't matter what you think. It matters what the audience thinks. And if Microsoft, I'll pick on Microsoft because they're worth whatever, like $2 trillion or something. Their videos get literally like 1,200 views. It's pathetic. It's sad. I mean, they have a few outliers. One thing, here's what's even more sad about it, is if you look at their channel, sometimes you're like, oh, but look at this one, it got 500,000 views. And then you look at it, it has 17 comments, and it's like, okay, well, they obviously used ads.
Put some good money behind it.
Yeah, they used ads to run up the views, which is just sad. That just tells you that they fundamentally don't understand YouTube and don't want to understand it. So the answer to that question, is what defines good YouTube content? It's making what your audience wants you to make. That's it. They decide, not you.
And then for a business that is that successful, why would they have to get better on YouTube?
Well, they don't have to. They don't. But I would ask the other question is like, why would you waste shareholder money and resources creating? I mean, these videos are beautiful. The production values are awesome. Why would you be spending millions of dollars of shareholder money on something that is generating no value? And in fact, I would argue is actually damaging the brand, because it's like pathetic. To see Microsoft's videos get 1,200 views looks really small time. So I would say just don't do YouTube at all. Like, either do it right or don't do it at all. Right? It's the same as anything else. Like, why are you wasting money and resources on something that's not performing?
Yeah, true. And so, like, what would be good content for? I know the audience decides that.
Yeah.
But why do you think they cannot cope with making that good content?
Like
where does it go wrong?
Well, it's a culture issue at the end of the day. It's because, I mean, I'm sure you guys have had the same experience. You talk to people at businesses about YouTube, and they don't, like, fundamentally, the issue is that they don't put the audience first. They put themselves first. It's like, oh, well, we want to talk about this new product feature. Okay, but does anybody on YouTube care about this new feature in Microsoft OneNote? Like, is that something people want to watch? I don't think it is. Whereas what I would do for them is, like, I would talk just, I mean, they're such a broad company, it's hard to they have a few channels, but what I would do for the Microsoft main channel is talk about, productivity in the context of work, because at the end of the day, that's sort of their main business. That's what I would do. And if it ends up involving Microsoft products, cool. But I would only mention their products when it made sense. But just at the end of the day, like, they should be getting millions and millions of views. Their channel should be like setting the tone for the entire conversation about productivity at work. That's what I think. They should be getting how was Linus Tech Tips, a company with like 40 people, eating their lunch when Microsoft is worth trillions of dollars, right? They have another channel that's like an Azure developers channel. That channel should be setting the conversation on cloud computing for enterprises and government, which is sort of Azure's specific focus. AWS's channel should be setting the conversation for cloud computing in the context of startups, because that's sort of their focus. So that's how I would do it. And if it ends up talking about any of their products, cool. But everybody knows like what Microsoft's products are and what AWS's products are. So they don't need to they don't need to hammer that message in their videos.
Fair enough. Yeah. So if we talk to a brand in general, like, why would they have to build a presence on YouTube? What's so important about it, according to you?
Well, why do you do email marketing? Why do you have an Instagram account? Why do you make TikToks? Why do you do anything? Because you want to build a brand and acquire customers. And specifically with YouTube, I would point to a couple things. Number one, YouTube is the most popular streaming platform. It's bigger than Netflix in terms of number of users, in terms of time spent on the platform. It's bigger than TikTok in terms of number of users and time spent on the platform, especially in attractive segments like, adults, not teenagers. There's a couple other specific. So I hate shorts. I would like to know what you guys think about this. I think shorts are trash. I'm a believer in long form video for a couple of reasons. Number one, it actually monetizes, which a large company won't care about, but a small company, if you can make $100,000 in AdSense revenue from your YouTube channel, that pays for the costs of the people who run it, which is nice. But besides that, long form video builds relationships with people in a way that short form video doesn't. For example, let's pretend that there's some girl on TikTok that's viral for like chopping vegetables really fast. I don't know if there is, but probably, right? Like someone's like chop, 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 chops onions really fast. And she gets millions of views on those. And you ask your neighbor about it. You're like, oh, that girl on TikTok that like chops onions really fast? Like, oh yeah, she's amazing. Yeah, what's her name? And they'll be like, I don't know. Right? They just know that she's the vegetable chopping girl. So I believe that as opposed to long form video, where you're talking to people, like the average watch time on my videos is like 9.5 minutes. You can tell a very nuanced, deep story in 9 minutes, right? So that's one of the reasons why I'm a believer in long form video. And also it's a lot easier to drive people off the app into the next step of your funnel with YouTube long form videos compared to short form, because everyone understands this pattern of, link in description. People know what that is and it actually works. There's also QR codes, which you can use now that people are watching a lot more videos on TVs. So those are the reasons why I like YouTube. And so the question that, like, when I'm talking to companies about this, typically, especially like smaller companies, I'd ask them this, like, let's say that you had, 500,000 people a month watching your videos, which is totally possible. Like I don't even think that's like a particularly large number. Let's say you had 500,000 people a month watching your videos. And let's say we could get 0.5% of those people to take some action to go deeper into your funnel. That would be 2,500 people a month dropped into the top of your funnel. Would that change your business? And just about anybody, I mean, Microsoft would say no, but just about any other company would be like 2,500 people into our funnel. Fuck yeah, that would change our business. Whether that's signing up for your newsletter, a product demo, whatever it is. So then that's the point of value number one. Point of value number two is, what is the brand value of those 500,000 people a month who now know who you are? They can put a name and a face to your company. If you're in B2B, next time you go to a conference, people are going to recognize you. They're going to come up and introduce themselves to you. What is the value of that in terms of like business development stuff, that people already know who you are and they know your story, right? So, and then just, I think YouTube is the best platform to establish yourself and your company as a thought leader in your industry. And if there's hundreds of thousands of people who now your company is top of mind as the thought leader in your space, what is that worth to you? I would argue millions of dollars, right? Like if you paid $100,000 to become like the top, to become the thought leader in the industry, that would be the best $100,000 you ever spent, right? Well, the great thing about YouTube is you can get paid to do that. You don't even have to pay them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I also don't love shorts. I just think shorts is really good for entertainment. For entertainment channels, you can rack up massive views. But then in terms of education or in terms of turning it into a business, then it's very difficult. And like you said, Finn, I like to use the example, if someone is kind of scrolling through short form content for 30 minutes and then you ask them, okay, what did you just watch? They probably wouldn't be able to tell you, because they watched probably about 100 things and they've forgotten everything. But I feel like for me, the short form content, like, we're still very early days when it comes to short form content. I mean, it was just like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, where short form really started to kind of become mainstream. And I feel like short form right now in 2024 is kind of similar to long form in 2010 or 2008, 2006, when you could have been on YouTube, but no one was really making money in 2010. Not that much, but then the people that got in early in 2010 for long form content are doing incredible now. And I feel like that's really where short form is, because we are like YouTube and TikTok, they're getting a lot better at monetizing short form, right? So there's more features coming out almost every month. And so if you think,
because YouTube only cares about shorts. Every single product update is about shorts.
Yeah, exactly.
Weirdly, they're the global leader in long form, and they seem to have zero interest in it.
Yeah, because I guess it's all about monetization. Like YouTube are really trying hard to help creators make money, because
short form is never going to monetize like long form does, ever. It never will.
No, but the more features that they kind of bring in that will help you monetize just that little bit more, then more creators are going to be more interested, and they're going to get more content. It's going to be, because at the end of the day, if people are making money from short form content, then they're going to get
they'll do more of it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that YouTube is really like I don't like shorts for businesses. I am way too addicted to scrolling on it, but it's purely entertainment. But I think where they are missing out now is that they're capping it at 1 minute, and it's very often that, like, if I compare it between Instagram and YouTube, Instagram allows maybe like 3 minutes sometimes, and it's just like you can easier get stuck into watching a 3-minute Instagram video than actually sitting down and watching a long form video on your phone. And so if YouTube would allow longer shorts, I know it sounds silly, but
no, it makes sense.
I think,
I mean, why cap it at a minute? Let the algorithm decide whether the video is
exactly
too long.
And TikTok has done this. Like, they're now allowing 15 minutes, and they're experimenting with longer, and people get stuck on it because it's the way you use your phone. And still, yes, TV is coming up, and fair enough, but still majority is on the phone, especially in Eastern countries. If we talk about Asia, like, majority will be watching on their phone. And so I think they're losing out a lot, and then businesses as well.
But I also think that YouTube are going hard with short form content, because there's no real competition for long form horizontal video. I mean, there was Vimeo, which are not really a thing anymore, but there's no real competitor. So they're pretty safe there. But with short form content, there's so many competitors. There's Instagram, there's TikTok that are that are very, very close. And so I think that's why YouTube has to really invest in short form content. However, if they do increase it to 3 minutes, if they do increase the cap to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, then in many ways they're kind of self-cannibalizing on their own kind of long form.
They already are, because the time that you spend on the app, those views from shorts, they have to come from somewhere. So every minute that you spend watching shorts is a minute that you're not watching long form. And so, from the perspective of a creator or from YouTube, they are cannibalizing, and I don't know why. I really don't. I mean, I guess part of it, of course, is TikTok envy, because they think that they need to be TikTok. I'm not convinced TikTok is profitable. I would imagine they probably aren't. Maybe they will be in some future universe, but their ad product sucks. So I'm really not convinced that TikTok is actually a good business. But aside from that, I think also maybe there's also probably some sort of an aspect where they have better margin on shorts, because they have to pay out 55%, on AdSense on long form. And because the attribution model is different on short form, I think that they probably will have better margin on that. And so they can pay creators less, because I bet you they really don't like writing that check every month for whatever it is, like $20 billion or whatever that they pay out to creators. That probably sucks. So I think there's probably something there, but I'm just not a believer in short form. Again, unless you said if it's just entertainment and all you care about is clout, that makes sense. But the other problem is that short form viewers don't really convert to long form viewers. It's two separate audiences. So you get millions of views on your shorts, but they don't make any money, and they don't convert into viewers of your long form, and they don't visit your website. So like, what are those views actually worth?
And from a consumer standpoint, the only time that I find it working, where I find it converting, is if you get podcast clips, right? So you get like a Joe Rogan podcast clip for like 60 seconds short, and it's really interesting. Then I go and watch the long form podcasts, like the 2-3 hour podcasts, then it converts. But for me,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the only type of video that does convert from or make me want to watch a long form video.
I'm not suggesting
Yeah.
that people don't make shorts. I just don't think you should optimize for it, right? That's the difference. Is
Yeah.
people are, for some reason, businesses believe in TikTok and put all this like effort into TikTok, which is cool. I get it. But then they treat YouTube long form as an afterthought, which is very strange to me, because anyone who understands those platforms knows that there's much more business value in YouTube long form than there is in short form. So that's my point. It's like, sure, make shorts, you should, but don't optimize for shorts.
Yeah, where I see the value in shorts is that it's easily cross-platform. So once you made it once, you go LinkedIn, you
Yep.
go Twitter, you go Instagram, you put it on YouTube. With a long form, you can't. I mean, maybe Twitter now, but it's not. It comes down to behavior, right? Like I can get lost in sitting down and watching an hour of shorts. Like that time flies by like crazy. But it's like making that commitment to go and watch a long form video is like a way bigger step.
Yeah.
Right. And then about I think where TikTok makes its money is I know this because in Vietnam it's all about TikTok.
Yeah.
And they sell on TikTok.
The live shopping and all that
they,
stuff.
They live shopping and if you think about Vietnam, it's 100 million people, but think about China, where it's originally from, that's 10 times more, if not 15 times more people there. And that's where all that, and that's just the way it's used is different.
Yeah, if you're
YouTube,
selling,
YouTube is a Western product.
if you're selling whatever, like some, low end consumer product, for sure, I think TikTok has a ton of potential, but that's not the people that I talk to. They're not selling leggings or, fucking spatulas or whatever.
Yeah, a totally different thing.
It's just kind of bringing this back to Microsoft. I'm looking at their YouTube channel now, and it's so unoptimized. Like the thumbnails
It's
are
sad,
so,
isn't it?
Even like they could literally spend like one of their marketing, like head of marketing, could spend 1 hour with us, and we could like help improve their YouTube channel so much with just 1 hour. I mean, just the very basics. Like they've got very very small text in the thumbnails. I mean, small text in a thumbnail just doesn't increase click-through rate, and these are the very basics. And we find the same thing with a lot of our clients before they become clients. Is they've often got marketing, like a marketing team running their YouTube channel, but their marketers are not YouTubers. Like really, they want YouTubers running their YouTube channel, and these are actually the channels that are the kind of businesses that we at Playstack love working with, because it's so easy to turn this like Microsoft's YouTube channel around. Because the content, I'm sure the content itself is solid. Like they've put a lot of
It's not.
money.
It's bad.
Oh, really? Okay, I've not seen
the production is great, but it's boring. It's like,
okay,
it's boring. It's about some like product feature for some database thing they just came out with. Nobody wants to watch that.
Yeah. So,
but to your point, like at least the titles and thumbnails could be better. They could probably get a 20 or 50% lift overnight just by making better titles and thumbnails. But I don't want them to have a 20% lift. I want them to have like a 20,000% lift.
Yeah, I was just looking at Apple's YouTube channel, and they're doing better in terms of their thumbnails and whatnot. However, they've disabled comments. So they're getting about 150, 200,000 views per video, but they've disabled comments, which is a bit of a red flag, which suggests that it's all paid ads.
Yeah.
Everybody would maybe also start complaining.
Yeah, maybe.
So like Finn, I see this often on your LinkedIn where you like, you did that with Microsoft, you did that with Amazon the other day as well. Had anyone got back to you about this? Like, okay, fair enough. Can you do it for us then? Or like, has it paid off on LinkedIn?
The companies themselves have not contacted me. I wish they would. I'd love to help them. But other people see it and it's funny, and it just sort of points out how bad businesses are at YouTube. So, that's how it works. Lots of people think that stuff is funny, and I don't feel bad about it because again, these are like $2 trillion companies. I don't feel bad about pointing out their crappy YouTube channels. They should be embarrassed.
The biggest success, for sure, and the biggest success we had was like purely from unoptimized channels. Like the content was solid-ish.
Yeah.
But they just hadn't, like they needed repackaging or something like that. Yeah. And and it's the most satisfying as well.
Yeah, and the best, like they're the best clients, is when their content is solid, but it's just packaged in a bit of a crappy way, and it's so easy to add value. Like we had a client, or we have a client rather. They're like a 6 or 7 year old channel, so they posted over 1,000 videos, and it was super unoptimized, but the content was amazing. And so we came in, we kind of like improved the thumbnails, titles, SEO, cut down the intros, the outro, just made it super optimized. And they were averaging like 2,000 views per video, and our 1,000 views per video. And our first video for them got 4,000 views. Our second
4x
video
overnight.
Our second video got about 400,000 views.
That's 500,000
now. Because, like I say,
the
it's
thing
super
is,
easy to.
It's so niche. It was such a niche channel, and it was he has a reputation already. It was just done by a 16-year-old or let's say a 12-year-old, something. Like the artwork looked like that, and all of that. So that was like just fun to dig in and get it done.
I'll give you an example of what Amazon should be doing. So my wife worked for AWS for like 6 years, and she sat next to the guy who created Java. Okay, he works for Amazon, James Gosling. Why in the world do you not have him on your YouTube channel telling that story and talking about virtualization and why he ended up working for Amazon and blah, blah, blah. Like, why in the world? And he's such a fascinating guy. He's a total character. Why in the world does he work for your company and you're not talking about him on YouTube? She also worked with the guy. This is kind of a niche thing, but I actually think it's interesting. So the operating system that's on most of your devices, like your microwave or your fridge or garage door opener or whatever, is called FreeRTOS. And again, I think that's a really interesting story to tell. Like, I don't know off the top of my head what the thumbnail will be, but it's like the operating system inside your microwave. Like that's a video that I could see if you package that the right way. That's a video I could see with like 10 million views, right? Like if Wired or Insider or something did that, it would have millions of views. Why isn't Amazon doing that? You hired literally the best people in the world, and you're paying them millions of dollars, and you're just having these like boring like systems architects or whatever, making like product demos on YouTube. Why?
Mike, there's this one channel that we both fell in love with. It's from also a new phone. The guy used to be co-founder of OnePlus.
OnePlus.
Oh, Nothing?
Yeah,
is that the name of it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That
genius.
channel is so addictive.
Yeah.
Like the dude is so relaxed, so chill. Everybody's so chill. And they do product stuff, but it's more like, how does it compare with theirs? Or they'll roast someone else's stuff or something. And it's like, the best one was like reviewing knockoffs of their own product.
Oh, that's great.
It's so creative.
Hilarious.
Like their whole whoever it is behind that YouTube channel is a genius. Like they really know what they're doing, not just in terms of optimization, but in terms of creativity, in terms of new ideas, like that, because that's the next level after optimization. And that channel is amazing. It's not easy to have kind of like a B2B YouTube. It's not easy to have a kind of behind the scenes YouTube channel that is performing as well as theirs. Now they do have kind of like maybe this is the wrong term, but a bit of a cult following, like a very dedicated, loyal fan base, which obviously helps. But really good YouTube channel.
And this guy's doing 500,000 views.
And most companies would be happy with 10% of that, right? Like, all the stars aligned for them. They've got this great CEO, cult following, people like mobile phones. So they have a lot of ingredients that maybe other people don't, and that's why they get 500,000 views. But getting 50,000 views for most companies would be amazing. They would love that.
Yeah. And actually the video that performs well is Nothing CEO reacts to Phone 2. So their second product. He reviews his own product. I was like, okay. But it's also, he's a character by himself. So like he could do anything and be interesting.
Yeah, not everyone's fortunate enough to have like a charismatic founder, that's the best asset you can have. Not everyone has it. That's okay. You can still do great things even without that.
So you do kind of YouTube consulting, have a kind of a strategy workshop. How does that work? Like, how does that? What's the kind of what would a client experience, kind of going from the onboarding to let's say graduation day?
Sure. So that particular offer is for people who already have a YouTube channel that is, performing to some level, but they would like it to perform better. So basically what we do is, first, I want to understand their goals in terms of business outcomes, meaning, are you trying to sell product? Are you trying to generate business for your company? Is it just purely about AdSense? Is it some combination of all those things? Whatever it is, because those, as you guys know, those goals will inform the content decisions we make. Meaning, if you're an apparel company and you want to sell 5,000 t-shirts a month, well, you're going to need to get millions of views in order to generate that kinds of sales, which means that we're going to need to make a certain type of content that's very broadly accessible. Whereas if you're, say, an agency and you only need to land 2 or 3 clients a year to have a great year, well, then we don't necessarily need to get as many views. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to translate those business goals into YouTube KPIs. So, again, if we want to sell this much product, then roughly we think we need to get this many views per month, sort of understand. That just helps us understand the scope. Once we have that, then we sort of take stock of what's working and what's not on your channel. And what I most often when I talk to people, the most common challenge is that there's someone who has a lot of subject matter expertise. They know a lot about this thing, but the videos that they're making are not getting views because they've packaged their knowledge in a very niche way. That's the most common thing. For example, if you're a software engineer and you're making, videos that are like a tutorial on how to set up some, NoSQL database, probably not going to get that many views because that's a really niche topic. And so usually what I do with them is figure out how to sort of go 1 or 2 steps more broad than that. So if you're a back-end software engineer whose like expertise is in databases, well, let's not talk about databases. Let's talk about building software applications, and maybe even a layer higher than that of just like big name software companies in general, right? So like your commentary, because that's always the easiest way to go, is like talk about people who are bigger than you. So, if your software engineer reacts to blah, 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 right? Stuff like that. So it's like, basically that tends to be the main thing, is how do we develop a point of view? And so what I do, I like to develop what I call a channel concept, which has 2 parts. Number 1 is the 1-sentence description of that channel. Imagine you're describing it to a friend at a party. For example, there's a guy named Patrick H. Willems who is he does like movie commentary stuff. And he went to like a fancy film school program. I think it was like NYU. And so it's something like, NYU film grad does commentary on blockbuster Hollywood movies. And so his thing is he sort of talks about these like Hollywood blockbusters in the same way as other people talk about art movies. Like he takes them really seriously. And it's really fun. So that's step number 1, is figure out what is that 1-sentence description. And you'll notice if you start using words like "and," that's when usually it's not focused enough. Well, he's a software engineer and he talks about this and this and this and this. It's like, whoa, that's 4 different channels. We got to focus, which nobody wants to do that, including me, but you have to, as we talked about earlier. The next thing we do is come up with what I call 3 to 5 belief statements, meaning what are the things that you believe about the world and about your field of expertise that are going to set you apart from everyone else. For example, in the case of Patrick H. Willems, one of the things that he believes, and like he's never articulated this in a video, but you can tell if you watch his videos, one of the things he believes is that lowbrow Hollywood movies should be treated with the same respect as highbrow art cinema, which is, again, that's an interesting thing. And so everything that you create should touch on these belief statements in some way or another. And everyone has these, they just don't know it. So basically my job is just pull those out. And then once we start articulating what they actually believe. So for example, there's someone I'm working with right now. She's like primarily known as like a Notion consultant. She helps people set up Notion, but actually she's just a total badass at like business operations. And usually what happens is companies the people that work with her sort of got thrown into the situation of having remote work, but they never really intended that. And so they don't have the systems in place to like do remote work properly. And so she should be talking not about Notion. She should be talking about remote work, which is a much bigger topic than just Notion. And so, for example, she can do things like react to, For example, like the Rockstar that makes GTA, they just announced like a return to office mandate. She should react to that, right? And that's a
Cool.
she's a very strong personality. She's awesome on camera. And now she will be able to establish herself as an authority on remote work, but it's wrapped in the context of a much bigger topic than, whatever, a tutorial on automating email campaigns or whatever.
There's always like a balance to find between how niche you go, right?
Yep.
Like, and also depending on the stage of your channel. What I personally noticed is the people that got big now, and we're talking about Iman Gatsi, Alex Hermosi, they never started with what they're talking about now.
Yep.
Because they wouldn't be the biggest ones back then than they were now.
Yep.
So I think even both of them started about sales
Yep.
back then, and even within sales, so. What is your point of view on that? Like how broad can you start with? Because in the end of the day, like a lot of what you target and we target is B2B, and it's usually always comes down to like business consulting or whatever coaching.
Yep.
Like how far can you go into that niche?
I mean, that's the question. That's the question. In general, I think it's better to aim as broad as possible, for the reasons you just said. Like, there's a trade-off of like when you have the larger your audience is, the less qualified that audience is going to be. But I feel like for example, Alex Hormozy, I saw when he was on Graham Stephan, he said he gets 2,400 leads a month, inbound leads a month. 0% chance that that even 1% of those are good leads, right? Like the vast majority of those are garbage. But I don't know. That sounds like a pretty good problem to have to me.
Yeah, it's interesting.
If you're getting that many leads, you hire someone to qualify them.
Like Iman Gadzi and Alex Hermosi, they both started their channels talking about closing sales, like how to generate leads, how to close sales. And then they kind of like outgrew that niche. And now if you check their channels, they're both all about how to make money, like how to make $10,000 a month. Interestingly, their target audience is as broad as possible, meaning if they're making a video on how to make $10,000 a month, the vast majority of their audience are not yet making anywhere near $10,000 a month. And that's why they're watching that channel.
The vast majority has never made a single dollar online.
And like you say, Alex Hermosi, he's got acquisition.com. And so the number of his audience that are actually qualified to like 7 figures, they're actually qualified to be a client of Alex it'd be absolutely tiny. But it's interesting. That's the way that they've gone. But then there's other channels. So I was talking to a YouTube channel owner just a few, maybe 1 or 2 months ago, and he was getting about, 200 views per video, which is not a lot relatively speaking. But from that 200 views per video, it's super niche. It's a SaaS consulting channel, and he's generating $15,000 to $50,000 a month just from that YouTube channel. So he's gone like the opposite way, where he's going super niche, but that audience is crazy qualified. So like, I guess there's no right or wrong.
That person probably wouldn't call me because there's nothing broken,
Exactly.
Be like, cool, great. Well, then keep doing it.
Although that being said, we just signed up someone that was already doing 7 figures from his YouTube channel.
And that channel is getting,
he was like
600 views per video. But
I mean, if that's working for them, that's awesome. But I would say it is a far more common problem that someone is making videos that get 200 views and it's not really doing anything for their business, and they need to figure out what's up, how to fix this.
Sure.
So in general, I think it's better to go broad, because it's easier to niche down once you have a large audience. Like Alex Hormozi could niche down tomorrow if he wanted to, and his views would go way down, but maybe he doesn't care. It's way easier to niche down than it is to go more broad. So that's my general perspective. And if you have the situation, if you've got millions of viewers that aren't qualified enough to be leads, well, that's an awesome problem to have. I think I would love to have that problem.
I mean, it's also branding at that point, right? It's not just straight up leads that he's going for. The thing is also, when we first started Playstack a few years ago, we were like, okay, we're just going to help on YouTube. But what we learned now is, because we want to do YouTube as top of the funnel, but what we learned is that, okay, cool, you could get all these leads, or let's say all these views, but how do you convert them, right? How did you figure that out for yourself? Because just looking at what you're doing is like, okay, so you use LinkedIn mainly
Yep.
for top funnel. And how do you personally bring them through the funnel?
So I require now, so I actually had a good problem, which is that I had too much inbound, which is awesome. And so I was having whatever, like 15 discovery calls a week, which is awesome, but it's like the majority of those people were not that serious.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the very good problem of like, all right, I need to filter these people out a little bit. So now the CTAs, you have to DM me to set up a call. And if you are too nervous to send me a DM, then I guess you're not serious enough about it, you know? And so I would rather have less discovery calls with more qualified people. But one thing I've noticed is that the people who, at least among the people that I work with, the people who are ready to go are ready to go. Like I have one call
Mm-hmm.
with them. I'm like, okay, here's the program. Here's how much it costs. And they're like, awesome, let's do it. I send them a Stripe link and they pay 15 minutes later. And then we set up a call for like 3 days later. The people who are like, yeah, let me think about it, more often than not are never going to do it, which is fine. I'm not putting them down for that. But basically, I think, you know, for me, creating a small amount of friction is sort of the ideal gate.
For sure.
I don't need any
We've
kind of
been through.
complicated like email funnel and all that sort of stuff. Maybe someday in the future, but I don't need that now. Just send me a DM.
It's also finite resources again, right? So
Yeah.
First of all, your time, but also if you would grow, you need to hire, I guess. Like we went through all ways, sort of ways, because I think our traffic source was cold email just because we had nothing set up for inbound. That's changing now though, but yeah, we had moments where Mike and I were doing the calls together at the beginning, 7 calls a day.
Totally. And it's brutal. You can't get anything done. It's so tiring.
Especially with US clients, and we're in Vietnam.
We did learn a lot.
So we was like late into the night, just call after call after call, and it was exhausting. We've changed our strategy now, but it was a really good learning curve, and it makes you a good salesperson when you have to just go through when you have to go through the repetitions
and understand the people and what their bottlenecks are and stuff like that. And so from there we changed our offerings as well.
Yep.
So that was very interesting.
Yeah, in general, I'll still set up a call with anybody, even if it seems like they're not qualified. I'll still talk to just about anybody, because sometimes you're surprised. They seem like they won't be a good lead, and they are. And even if they're not, you still learn something from it.
Yeah, like we had some of the best calls was not directly that they became a client, but that they literally like consult you on, I'm not in this position right now, but maybe you should focus on this because I know a few people that go this way, or it's like, and it was like, oh dang, yeah, you're so right. And then we pivot, and then it gets results after that. So cool. Awesome. Before we wrap up, what is next for you? Like currently, you also mentioned that you have a kid, for example. You're working your ass off as a consultant, I believe, and as a YouTuber.
Yep.
How's that balance going, and what is next for you?
Well, the balance is just surviving one day at a time. It's a lot, but I mean, I'm fortunate to have these opportunities, so I just make the most of every day and keep going as long as I can. So what's next is like, I would like to stop doing YouTube, within the next year or so, maybe less, because I enjoy helping other people build their thing. I don't really feel a need to be in front of the camera anymore. So that's my goal.
And where can our audience find your workshop?
If you go to finnmckenty.com, you can find it, or search me on LinkedIn, and it's one of my featured links, or just DM me, and we can chat.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, same here. Thanks for having me.
Finn.
All right, talk to you soon. Bye.